Hi, all. Good to be back with you again. I've been doing a great deal of thinking, especially with everything that's going on. And it's become very apparent to me that people do not clearly understand the Weight Loss Program. I have told you many, many times, this is not a diet. It's a scientifically based program that if you do it properly, it can change your life. Many years ago, 8, 9, 10 years ago, a woman gynecologist, because some of her patients were doing our program, decided that she would do the program as well. Her husband, also a physician, said, I don't think you should do weight loss because it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't want you to get sick. At any rate, she and her husband came to a compromise. She would do the program, but every week she would also do a blood test. She lost about 40 pounds. Her husband now sends me patients regularly because his comment was, I cannot believe the changes in your body, meaning his wife, and the results of the blood test. So what I want to do today is focus you on an understanding of what weight loss really is. You know, we talk about, and you've heard me say many times, it is not a diet. It's a scientific, chemical weight loss program. Now, normally I'm prepared but spontaneous. But today I'm going to function a little differently because I've written notes for myself to make sure that I cover what it is that I really want to. When we go on a diet, we want to lose weight. Now, if we want to lose weight, we have to get rid of body volume. If there's less of me, I will weigh yes. If there's a lot less of me, I will weigh even less than that. Weight loss is different from diets in that it is not ketotic, and you've heard me say many times, you only lose fat. Well, to begin with, there are 3 types of fat: structural, normal, and fat that the body keeps in reserve. Excuse me. The structural fat surrounds your organs. It keeps your skin smooth, and it cushions your bones and joint so that, for example, the bottom of your feet have fat as a cushion. The normal fat in your body is used for fuel. It's what people on regular diets lose, plus they also lose muscle. And that's the reason why some people who lose a lot of weight have that gaunt, pinched, emaciated look, because the structure of their body, muscles, ligaments, organs, are cannibalized in the weight loss process. And the third type of fat is reserve fat. And that the body keeps for emergencies. So that, for example, it's known that women who are pregnant, their bodies use this reserve fat, and they do so to ensure the viability of the fetus. Now, reserve fat is only released when the nutritional deficiency is severe and the body is doing so for survival. Obese people, really overweight people, store fat in their bodies. Men somewhat differently than women, but most women store the fat in their waist, their thighs, and their buttocks. Men store fat in their waist and upper chest. When we started this program, Dr. Chu sat me down and explained to me that if people truly understand what this program was all about, they could change their lives dramatically. We constantly talk about self-respect, self-love, and all of those things are real. All of those things are meaningful, but they only come into play after you've recognized what it is you're doing, why it is you're doing it, how it's affecting you. And when you don't pay attention and don't understand what it is that you're doing, you end up getting less rather than more. Now, let's not minimize the fact that food and comfort are incredibly powerful. Let's not ignore the fact that I know of no one who doesn't have a psychological problem, who doesn't see food as comforting and helpful on many different levels. Therefore, many people who diet have the psychological issue of feeling when we take away the food that they're being deprived. Deprivation is a matter of psychological understanding. Now, the key here is to understand that when this program was originally developed over 1,000 years ago in China. There were very few overweight people. And most of the people who were overweight were wealthy. That became a problem. And so they used their scientists and they began to understand that the structural fat in the body was important. But more importantly, they discovered that this gland in your midbrain, named the hypothalamus, was critical in the process. Because the hypothalamus controls hunger, it controls satisfaction, and it also controls its awareness of what you are taking in. Melanie, I'll get to you, but not online. Melanie wrote me a text, and I will answer her after we're finished with this. Now, let's focus on the hypothalamus. And this is really important. And now, to my knowledge, the only program that has a similarity but is very different from ours are ketotic programs, where your body goes into ketosis, where what you are taking in is extremely restrictive, where carbs are, almost any carb is prohibited. And understand, AccuWeight Loss is not a ketotic diet. AccuWeight Loss does focus on the hypothalamus. But there's an issue here, because the truth is, after all of this time, there is really very minimal understanding of what the hypothalamus does and why it does what it does. What we do know is that people who are overweight have abnormal functioning of the hypothalamus. Now, I've done a lot of research to make sure that what it is that I'm going to be saying is meaningful. It could be a thyroid problem, it could be this kind of problem, it could be that kind of problem. What's interesting in my readings is that the only consistent correlation with overweight, one, intense physical hunger. Two, a lowering of the body metabolism. Three, really heavy food craving. And last, the desire to eat often. All of which are stimulated through the hypothalamus. So it's physiological. And on some levels, we could even call it an addiction. So here are the questions. One, why is the hypothalamus functioning abnormally? Two, how, if possible, can we fix it and correct it to alleviate the problem? And 3, is it possible to not only fix it, but to create a permanent fix so that weight is not a problem? Further study on my part came up with 3 possibilities. 1, it's genetic. 2, at some point in time in a person's life, the stress and pressure created an overload. The hypothalamus caused the body to secrete hormones, and the hormones caused the hypothalamus to go to an abnormal level of functioning and has remained there. And the last, the hypothalamus caused the body to go into a high level of fat storing. Now, when we started the program, Dr. Chu came into my life in 1995-96. We actually became a corporation, AccuWeight Loss, Inc., in February of 1997. And there, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot totally, so you'll excuse me for a moment. I forgot to shut down my cell phone, so that's going to be a competition. Now, what Dr. Chu told me was in China in those days, the only problem was with the rich, because there were very few, if any, overweight Chinese. And they commissioned these Chinese scientists who discovered that the key not only was the hypothalamus, but also how the food intake functioned to cause the problems that overweight causes. Now, let's talk about the acupressure. Acupressure predated acupuncture. Acupuncture uses the same points that acupressure does, but acupressure does not go through the skin. And there are 12 different acupressure points behind the ears. Only one of those acupressure points is functional at any one time. The other 11 are dormant. So the odds are 12-1 that you're going to get it right. Dr. Chu spent 6 months training me how to palpate behind the ears to find the actual acupressure point that was functional. The second week, I would look for the second point and realized that the odds of locating the proper acupressure point never got better than 11 to 1. They were 12 to 1 the first week. The first point became dormant. So there were 11 points. So now 11 to 1 that I'm going to hit the right point. And Dr. Chu just pushed me and pushed me and pushed me until I went 2 full weeks without making an error. I had it down. He then said to me, there are some doctor friends that I have, and some of them were not only physicians as he was, but PhDs as well, and trained in other fields. And he wanted me to train them as he had trained me. I was an absolute failure. Very disappointed, very frustrated. I could do it, but I never developed the capacity to teach. Now, there were 12 different acupressure points. I had to palpate every single week the proper acupressure point. It was very time consuming, but that's the way it was. And then as we began to expand, it became unrealistic because the time and energy was not there. And so I went to Dr. Chu and I said to him, what am I going to do? I can't handle all of this. And he gave me an algorithm which we use today, but differently. What happened then is a patient would come in, I would weigh them, I would write down their weight, and I would palpate behind their ear, and then their other ear, and I would write down the acupressure point because they're parallel. At the end of the day, I had a list of patients. I had a list of acupressure points. And we had obtained through my daughter, a brilliant computer person, and he ran Dr. Chu's algorithm against my work. The disparity between what the algorithm came up with and the acupressure point, 0. It took us 3 years, me putting down the acupressure point, the computer person adapting the algorithm to what it is that I was finding, height, weight, sex, age. There are a whole list of things that go in there. And after 3 years, the acupressure point could be identified by the algorithm. But that's only part of the story. Why milk, fruits, and vegetables? The hypothalamus is not functioning properly. People have cravings. People are out of control. And all of the weight loss that diets were producing were basically cannibalistic. because you not only burn fat, you burn muscle, you burn organ, and it impacts on your metabolism. Now, how, if you diet, if you lower metabolism, can you go back to normal life? So the programs are cannibalistic, and the programs are not permanent. That's why we developed the AcuPoint Finder. And we now have a patent from the United States government. It's called a utility patent. And the reason we have needed that patent is because we live in a society which is filled with copycats. And copycats are not interested in you. I've said to many of you over the years, I tell it the way I see it. And I'm not going to play games with you. And the reason I won't play games with you is the moment that you begin to mistrust me, that you can't trust me in what I say and what I do, what's left? And I have been promising, and I've had to change the words because of social media, etc. So now it's lose up to 15 pounds every 30 days, every month. But why does it work? And the answer there is really very simple. To begin with, if you think about the diet, the food part of it, it takes you back to the first year of life. Infants are fed milk, fruits, and vegetables. It is the biggest and fastest period of growth for a human being. And then we discovered, because we're always asking questions, we discovered that milk contains something called conjugated linoleic acid. People call it CLA for short. And we discovered that milk contains conjugated linoleic acid, which is an emulsifier. So I looked it up. And the analogy I came up with to help understand is, I want to make a cake. I want to make a cake that tastes good. So I take some water and I take some flour and I try to mix the flour and the water together, but it flies all over the place because there's some kind of electrical resistance among the molecules of the water and the molecules of the flour. And so people use something called lecithin, which is an emulsifier. It breaks down the electrical potential so the water and the flour don't repel each other and it becomes dough. Well, milk contains conjugated linoleic acid. What it does is it facilitates the body breaking down the fat in your body so that it turns into sugar, and you're living off the sugar that comes from the fat in your body. Now, I want you to understand this, and this is really important. If you look at nutritional facts, you're going to see that almost everything is based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. A calorie is a piece of energy. And they say you need 2,000 pieces of energy a day to maintain your weight. When you break down the milk, fruits, and vegetables, and I'm being a little generous here, you take in about 500 calories. And it takes 3,500 calories to make a pound. But let's stick with the 2,000. I'm giving you, in the food part of the program, 500 calories. You can't live on 500 calories. You'd be dragging. Now, here is what happens, and this is what's important. The acupressure, number one, by stimulating the hypothalamus, tells the body that satisfaction has been achieved. What it doesn't do is handle the water part of that. This body, your body, is 70% water. That's why many people, when they go on a diet, the first week is discounted because they're losing a lot of water. In this case, the same thing is true, except satiety, satisfaction has been achieved. And so if you are hungry, what you know is 95% of the time, if you sip water, half of your body weight, slowly, not all at once, because it'll just run right through you, hunger will go away because your body can live without food because of the fat. Your body can live without food for weeks, but it only can live without water for days. And that's also why some people, after the second or third week, develop some constipation, because the body needs water. You're becoming dehydrated. The body will go into the bowel, that's the garbage department, go into the stool, steal the water so that you can live, and what's left is constipation. The beads also have a different purpose, and this is what's important. By communicating with the hypothalamus, the body's ability to count calories is, let's call it fogged, is made blurry. And so your brain is unable to fully understand that the calories were taken away. You needed 2,000, you're getting 500, and in diets, your body would go into starvation mode. Now, what is starvation mode? Simplistically, you're going to cannibalize your body. You're going to burn fat, you're going to burn muscle, you're going to burn organ, you're going to leach minerals from the bones, and it's going to lower your metabolism. The beauty of weight loss is because the hypothalamus confuses, blurs the brain. The brain doesn't realize that the calories were taken away. From a food point of view, we've taken you back to being your first year of life. Now, during your first year of life, look around you. Look at the growth and development that occurs in a person during that first year of life. And what are they fed? Milk, fruits, and vegetables. Because of who and how we are and where we live today, we've developed alternatives, but the alternatives, plant-based alternatives, those alternatives maintain the integrity of what it is that we're doing. Now think about this. Your body functions energy-wise by breaking down food into sugar, and the sugar is like the gasoline in the tank of your automobile. It gets burned, and that's where you get your energy. But if we break it down to where you were when you were a child, it was the healthiest period of time based on normal circumstances, and you grew and you became more of what? And that's what the program does without, and that's the important thing, of using your body. It uses only the sugar that comes from the fat in your body. Now, if you're burning only fat, now stop and think for a minute, and let's go to an automobile. It has a tank of gasoline. That's fuel. Now, gasoline does nothing. It sits in that tank. When you turn on the engine, and we're not talking about electric vehicles, when you turn on the engine sucks some of the gasoline out of that tank. There's a spark plug which ignites the gasoline. It explodes and pushes the pistons. When you run out of gas, the car stops. But if you put more gasoline in, the car will ride again. So there is nothing that gasoline does but wait to be used, and that's the fat in your body. But remember now, we're talking now about reserve fat. Because reserve fat accumulates and causes your body to be misshapen. If we do the program, and here's what's important, the body does not go into starvation mode because it can't count calories. If it can't count calories, the body does nothing to protect itself. But we do have a problem. From a calorie point of view, you're only taking in 500 calories. You're short 1,500 calories a day if we use those figures. Now, after a week of 500 calories a day, tell me you're not going to be dragging. Tell me you're not going to be weak. And what I said to you is, on all of those diets, you don't only burn fat, but you burn muscle and organ as well. So we're cannibalizing the body. Here, that doesn't happen. And so you'll notice, second or third week, people are saying to you, there's something different about you. Did you change your hair? And they don't clearly know what it is because the only thing that's changed is the bloat and the puffiness has diminished. Your skin stays smooth. You're only losing fat, and therefore you're not cannibalizing your body. So therefore, the key is to understand this is chemical. Now, the key is to recognize that over the years, food has changed. There is much more food, and that food manufacturers make food more and more delicious, but they also use things that cause your body to make chemical changes. What we are doing is giving your body an opportunity, starting in that first week, to heal itself. Now, remember what I said. That doctor who refers patients to us, and we have many physicians who refer patients to us, have recognized that the program, despite the fact that it makes no sense to a lot of people, it works. Milk, fruits, and vegetables simulate the strongest period of growth that a baby makes. And we are therefore giving you and taking you back to a cleansing, detoxifying period of time. So the rest of what it is we're talking about here is psychological. And here I want you to pay attention. You have decided, if you're watching me and doing the program, that you want to lose weight. Now listen very carefully. If you were not in weight loss mode, food would not be an issue. Food is only an issue because we want to lose weight. But food, from when you were born, brings you comfort and satisfaction and relaxation and entertainment. So it's powerful as heck. And during these pandemic times, even more so. The isolation. People are going back to work now. People are calling in because they suddenly recognize they're going back to work and their clothes don't fit. And they choose AccuWeight Loss because in their past, they remember what we promise. You don't stay in business for 24 plus years. Make the same promise, 15 pounds every 30 days, every month. How do you make that promise for 25 years and stay in business? People talk, people refer. And the answer is because it works. But what it doesn't do is change what goes on in your head and the psychological issues involved. Now, many of you know, in a previous life, I was a licensed psychologist. I would sit with patients 1-2 times a week. I would help them have insight and understanding as to how to deal with their issues. And I did not know, but I had gotten to a point in life where nowadays they call it burnout. I didn't realize that. And I'm very, very fortunate because Dr. Chu came into my life, trained me, and now I'm applying those concepts that I used to in therapy with you. One of the things we talked about 2 weeks ago was redefining self-love. We're not talking about Narcissus who sat at the edge of the pool and fell in love with her reflection. We're talking about waking up in the morning, recognizing that you are taking care of yourself, that you have become so important to you that you are taking care of yourself. And the more you take care of yourself, it's strange. You begin to like being who you are. You don't have to use food to fill you, to distract you. But there is a problem. Now, here you have to accept who I am. I believe that there is an evil inclination in all of us. I find it interesting that LIVE says live or live, and EVIL, which is the opposite of LIVE, are the same 4 letters. The evil inclination causes us to deal and feel psychologically not complete. I don't know how else to put it in a simplistic kind of way. And what happens is because we get comfort from food, when we're feeling depressed, angry, upset, annoyed, lonely, and I can go on and on and on and on. We use food to cover up that. But when we like who we are, when we take care of who we are, things begin to change. I get up in the morning with me. This morning, for reasons that I will not speak about today, I was very unhappy with me. I worked on this Facebook thing, but thoughts were coming into my mind. And I didn't like being alone with myself because those voices wouldn't shut up. They kept telling me that I was not, for me, what I should be. And I thought about it. And I thought about it. And I realized that those thoughts came from my past. Everybody has a past. Everybody has issues. I talked to you about the 5th grade kid who ran away because in his first marking period, he failed almost everything, and his father yelled and screamed at him. Second marking period, he failed everything, and his father beat the tar out of him. Third marking period, he ran away. Why did he run away? He didn't know what to do. His experience with having failed terrified him because he felt unloved and whatever else. How do I know? They brought him to me for therapy. And I helped him recognize that there were reasons that had nothing to do with his worth. Our experiences in life are critically important. But if we develop self-respect, if we like who we are, if we treat this body as though it's a temple, then what happens is our behavior towards other people changes. Hi, Vaughn. Hi, Canchetta. People are starting to leave me things. I can't respond to them right now. I'll talk to them later. Now, this is important. If you start with yourself and you like who you are by treating yourself the way you're supposed to be treated. Now, here's something I've learned over and over again. Every single time I hear a criticism of AccuWeight Loss, I know two things. Number one, the person criticizing is bothered by AccuWeight Loss. It's impacting on them in some way. And remember the story that I told you about the woman who chose to go off the program rather than get a divorce because her husband became fearful as she was becoming more feminine and exciting that she would leave him because he felt inadequate. So he wanted her to stay overweight. And how did he do that? He said, don't lose the weight or we get a divorce. For whatever her reason is, she chose to stop the program. And I can't believe she's happy because she's living with a man who says, I love you, but. Now, if I say I love you, but, can you trust that I love you? But if I say in the morning to that me that's always with me, I love you, I know whether it's the truth or not. I can't run from it. I can't hide from it. I don't have to run from it or hide from it. AccuWeight Loss is the way to start to change your life. Because one of the things that I have learned, you go to a party, and you ever notice how people gravitate to certain people? There is something about those people that we want to be like them. We want to be close to them because it fills us in some kind of way. And we think if we touch them or get close to them, it's going to rub off on us. Well, you can do that with yourself. And that's where the psychological aspect of AccuWeight comes in and the stuff that we are talking about. We have these recipes. And why do we have these recipes? For a very simple reason. Food is powerful. When we eat it, it feels good. And we're being restrictive. But if we eat food that we can look forward to because it tastes good, then we have less of those kinds of feelings. We make ourselves feel good. And at the same time, Our bodies and minds are changing. And that's where phase 2 and phase 3 come into the program. You're learning now how to live without food. That's all you're learning, how to live without food. But in the process of learning to live without food, you're changing the shape and your perception of yourself. It's working. And it's working because you're doing the work. You begin to have self-respect. And other people begin to notice, and they want some of it. Not 100% of us. Our circumstances and lives are different. And that's why we have things like the magic protocol. You and I know that if I bug you and bug you and bug you and bug you and bug you, at some point you're going to say, all right already, and you're going to compromise and give in. The magic protocol, excuse me, the magic protocol prevents you from giving in. It's as simple as that. But it doesn't take away your control. Because the only way the magic protocol can be effective is if you use it. Did you hear what I said? If you use it. Now let's take the Tic Tac part. I have Tic Tacs. They're in my pocket. I don't use them. If they don't use them, they don't work. If I use them, I put in 3 Tic Tacs. The flavor fills my mouth. And even if I weaken and say, oh, I can't do it anymore, I've put the Tic Tacs in my mouth. And the moment I've put the Tic Tacs in my mouth, I can't go off the program, because if I put whatever it is that I want in my mouth, the combination of the taste is going to be horrible and I'll spit it out. And since I was in control, I put the Tic Tacs in my mouth. I knew that maybe I would break down. And I know I'm not perfect. So I do break down sometimes. But if I use the Tic Tacs, it's impossible to break down. And since I took care of me, I like me better. And you'll like you better. Because it grows and it grows. This is a way of life that we're changing. We live in an insane world. Nothing is right anymore. But we don't have to have a fight with us.